Alright guys, so today I'm going to be doing CHING number 127. Sometimes I just can't believe what number I'm up to. It's kind of crazy. So the first one that I have is actually a Waterford piece. So if you have been watching all of my CHING videos, you know at one point Eric had purchased quite a few pieces of Waterford little figures off Facebook Marketplace. So this one was of a resting lion that sold for $119. I also sold a set of these ceramic tumbling snowmen. These sold for $79.99, and I'm pretty sure I picked these up at a yard sale and I probably paid maybe $3 or less for them. I kind of come across these snowmen a lot. I know I've gotten a set at a yard sale. I've found a set at an antique store. And I think I paid like $5 for that set, which might have been this set. I honestly don't even remember. And then I just found another set at a churchyard sale that was still in the box, the original box. And you'll see that probably on Thursday. I have like a church follow me along yard sale vlog. So I've been finding them a lot lately, and they do sell. These here, like I said, sold for $79.99. I feel like the price on them has come down a bit. I have two sets, I believe, currently listed, and I have them both at a $49.99 price. So definitely lower than the price I sold these for. Let's see, I also have a cross stitch. This one was by Design Connection that sold for $19.99. That either came from a yard sale or an auction. And some cross stitch kits can do really well, some more so than others. The Dimensions Gold collection is definitely one to look out for. Again, not all of them are worth a lot of money, but it seems like when you find a Dimensions Gold collection one, it tends to be worth a little bit more. I also sold a Bucilla Noel felt craft kit for $39.99. So these probably came from an auction. I do remember one day there was quite a few crafting kits. We also sold a Norman Brum enamel plate. This had a rabbit on it that sold for $59.99. That also came from an auction. We actually just sold another one of, well, we haven't yet, but the person plans on purchasing it when they get back from vacation, another large Norman Brum enamel bird sculpture, and we're going to do a local pickup on that because they don't live very far away. I just did a local pickup today, so people do use that option. So, you know, if you don't have that available or whatnot, you know, if someone asks to do a local pickup, it's super duper duper easy. You just meet in like a public area. Typically we do it at like a convenience store parking lot area, and you just scan like a little QR code that they have on their end, and easy peasy, it's done. And it's really funny though, and I apologize, I'm doing a little bit of rambling now. We didn't spend a whole lot of time talking today to the person who picked up something, but a lot of the times when you do local pickup, like we'll be like standing there for like quite a few minutes, like 20 minutes or so to a half an hour, typically talking to the person who picked up whatever item it was. We've done quite a few local pickups, and it's just so fun and interesting to hear like their stories about like their collections of like what they're buying and stuff like that. So, you know, people are like really chatty, and I'm perfectly, like we're perfectly fine with that because it's really fun to hear everyone's stories. Seems like everyone has a story about like their collections. Next item we have is a video game. This was from 1992. It is a Sega. The video game was called Soul Feast, if I'm pronouncing that right. That sold for $15.99, and that probably came from an auction. We also sold a Monet trinket box of a pair of rain boots. That sold for $49.99. Again, auction where Eric had won a bunch of Monet trinket boxes. This next thing I actually found at Goodwill like a long time ago. It was this wooden plaque. It had a really funny little like poem on it. I probably paid like $1.99 for it, and that sold for $12.99. That did take a while to sell though. The next two items did go to the same person, and it was the same exact item. They just purchased both of them. These were a Vincent van Gogh sunflower mugs. These both sold for $29.99 a piece, and they came from an auction. They were like on a tray of some stuff that we had won. There's three. They purchased 3 mugs. I apologize. So you saw 2 were the same at $29.99, and then there was a sunflower mug for $39.99. The other ones just had flowers on. I apologize for that. Let's see. I also sold a like pirate treasure chest box. It was like a jewelry box, but it looked like a pirate treasure chest. It was so amazing. I found this at a yard sale. I'd say I paid maybe $5 for it, I want to say, and that sold for $27.80. Next was this was from the 1970s, a seashell shaped compact mirror that sold for $19.99, and I'm pretty sure that came on a tray of some stuff I won at an auction as well. The next item was for a set of dollhouse bedroom furniture. These went to the Lundby Dollhouse. That sold for $29.99, and that came out of a vintage dollhouse that I had purchased at a yard sale. I sold a lot of 3 vintage Maryland hunting licenses. So there was, I think, 2 from 1961 and 1 from 1963, I believe. Again, these were on a tray of stuff I won at an auction, and they sold for $19.99. I also sold a pair of old blue opaline milk glass candlesticks for $99.99. These came from an auction, and I actually won 2 sets of these at the same auction, but they were like different days. It's really weird how that happens sometimes. But I had sold the one pair, so when another pair came up like weeks after, I knew to buy it because I had already sold the other set. I sold a Japanese Satsuma vase for $91. That came from the same auction where those candlestick holders came from. Same way with this next one. You guys probably will remember those auctions where I was buying a bunch of like the old like Japanese cloisonne vases. This one was a Jimbari vase with a koi fish on it that sold for $139.02. I also sold another cross-stitch kit. This was another cross-stitch kit. This one was by Sunset, and it was called Window to the West. That sold for $49.99. So you see some cross-stitch kits sell better than others. So this one was a good one. I also sold a vintage Valentine's Day card. This one was of like a mechanical card of a girl that sold for $10.99, and that came out of a shoebox full of vintage Valentine's Day cards. We had one at an auction. I also sold a little mouse. Eric and I had won quite a few of these little mice at the auction. They were by an artist named David Sabol, and this one was a carved wooden mouse holding a strawberry. That sold for $178.18. Let's see, we also sold a Josie Marin Argan Milk treatment. So this was like a skincare item that sold for $49.99. Came from an auction where I was winning a bunch of beauty stuff. We also sold a Tiffany style nutcracker lamp for $175. Some of these stained glass lamps can do really, really well, and this nutcracker one was a super good one. I feel like that also came from an auction. Same way with this next item, came from one of the folk art auctions we had gone to. And if you haven't seen like my auction video of the folk art auction, I do have them here on my channel if you want to go look and see all of the cool folk art stuff. This one here was by P.D. Hook, and it was a sculpture that sold for $249. Same way with this next item, also came from that same auction. This one was a folk art painting by someone named Barbara Strasser. It was kind of on the small side. It actually came with some stuff that we won. I don't think people realized who it was made by. I knew who made it, but like I didn't know the real value of it because it was like a smaller painting. But sometimes smaller things can actually do better than larger things, if that makes sense. Anyway, the painting sold for $249.50, so that was amazing. Next piece was also another Waterford piece from that same Facebook Marketplace purchase. This one was of a rose bowl that sold for $79.99. I also sold a crossbody purse by a company called Geely. It stands for Got It, Love It. That sold for $39.99, and that came from a yard sale, and I'd say I paid $4 or $5 for it. I also sold an Estee Lauder lipstick in the shade Hot Kiss for $24.99, and that came from a flea market. This next item actually went to a subscriber named Karen. She purchased a Coach card case wallet for $25.99. I feel like that came from a yard sale. I remember I purchased that and I was going to keep it for myself, and then I never ended up using it, so I just decided to sell it. I also sold a Buyer's Choice lady. She was holding a basket of cookies. She sold for $49.99, and she came from an auction. I'd say I paid $10 for her. Here's another vintage Valentine's Day card that sold. This one was of a cat having a tea party. That sold for $12.99. This next item was for like a red pinched glass bowl. That sold for $16.99, and that came on a tray of some stuff that I had won at, I think it was the folk art auction. This next item came on a tray from an auction that had a bunch of like dollhouse stuff on. It was like a little mini dollhouse baby doll, but the brand was called Caco, C-A-C-O, and just that little tiny baby doll sold for $12.99. That's why I like picking up dollhouse stuff. I also sold just a little gingerbread man wooden stamper for $4.99. No idea where that came from. This next item came from a yard sale. It was a tank top by a company called Pol, P-O-L. That sold for $17.99, and I think I paid $1 to $2 for that. Next item also came from a yard sale. This was a vintage from 1984 My Little Pony plush stuffed animal that sold for $20.69, and I probably paid $1 for that. Next item went to a subscriber named Sandra. She purchased a wooden strawberry recipe box for $19.99. I feel like that might have come from an auction. I tend to get my recipe boxes at auctions or yard sales. I sold a vintage from 1997 deluxe supermarket play set. I think this was by a company called Meredith, if I'm not mistaken. That sold for $199.99. I picked that up at a yard sale, and I think I paid like $10 for it. I know it wasn't much, and that was just an insane sale. I sold an Isabella Fiore clutch purse for $29.99. That came from a yard sale, and I'd say I paid $2 or $3 for it. I also sold just a small Barbie accessory. It was just a little gold purse for $9.99. That came from a yard sale, and it was in a Ziploc baggie full of some Barbie accessories. I paid $1 for. I sold a tulip shaped lampshade for $69.99, and that came from the folk art auction. I also sold a vintage from 1994 Kelly Barbie sister doll for $9.99, and that actually came with some Barbies that I had won at an auction. This next item went to a subscriber named Marie. This was for an eyeglasses shaped brooch pin that sold for $10.99, and I think that came from an auction on a tray of some jewelry that I had won. So the next item, this was a whole set. Somebody from overseas purchased a bunch of our Franklin library books, like a whole bunch of them. So this was amazing. Eric and I had won these at an auction, and they purchased the whole lot, and their bill was $209.92 is what we sold all of the books that they had purchased. Next we have a Menno folk art wooden goat that sold for $59.99. That came from the folk art auction, and I'm pretty sure they also, this was the same person, this one was a Menno folk art wooden chicken that sold for $39.99. Same way with this next item, also from that auction. This was for a Norman Brum, another bird plate. This one sold for $49.99. This next item was a vintage Tamagotchi, but it was brand new, still in its original packaging. This we won at an auction. It sold for $99.99. It was on a tray of some stuff we won. I think we paid about $20 for the tray. Next was a jar of Philosophy Hope in a Jar skin cream that sold for $29.99. Came from a beauty auction. Next was a vintage style rabbit on this like spring coil. I purchased this at a yard sale. I think I paid maybe $2 for it, and that sold for $22.99. I also sold a vintage from 1980. This was a trend sticker album. So that sold for $39.99. That came from an auction. At one point, I had won like a shoebox full of vintage stickers, and that was in there. And then the last thing that I have for this cha-ching is a vintage My Little Pony crown. It was just like a little accessory for the G1 My Little Ponies. That sold for $5.99 and probably came with some, at one point, I think it was at a church sale, I had gotten like My Little Pony stable that was just like filled with vintage ponies and accessories and things like that. So that's probably where that came from. So that's pretty much everything for this specific cha-ching. Let's see, at the end of the video, I like to tell you what my past 31 days are as far as my sales are down. Boo! They're down 9.7%. So boo hiss to that. I honestly like only ever look at that right before I do a cha-ching video. I don't look at it like any other time, because as long as I'm having sales and as long as like I'm doing good, and when I am putting in all of my sales into my Google Docs and everything's in the green, then I'm happy. You know what I mean? So I'm in the green on my end, so that's all that matters to me. But as far as eBay goes, I feel like sales are okay. I had quite a few good, like, high-priced sales, so that's always a good thing. And today I spent some time getting some stuff listed. I feel like the past 2 to 3 days, I haven't been listing as much just because I've been busy with some other things. So I'm trying to find some time to get some stuff listed. I do have a Whatnot show later on this evening. So, you know, I had been working on getting stuff together for that. But, you know, eBay's chugging along, in my opinion. I think things are perfectly fine. Obviously, we always want as many sales as possible, but, you know, we get what we get, basically. Then the only other things that I really wanted to talk about, I feel like I never really discussed this before, so I figured I would just take the time to do it. I wanted to talk about jewelry for a minute. I don't sell like a whole lot of jewelry on eBay. I have a lot of jewelry that I need to sell, I need to list. But I had a lot of jewelry that I had gotten. At one point I had gotten like a shoebox full of jewelry at a yard sale for like $5. And I knew that there were some pieces in there that had marks on them and stuff like that, and I don't know a thing about jewelry as far as like how to tell if something is like real gold or real silver, other than, you know, if it clearly says like 14 karat or 10 karat or what have you. So Eric and I know like quite a few jewelry resellers, you know, from auctions and stuff like that. And we actually, you know, talked to quite a few. And at one point I had a few pieces that we gave to one of them, and he looked at them and weighed them and stuff like that, and I sold them to him. And he gave me a very fair price, because what they do is they just take it to get melted down. They don't actually like resell the piece. They just like melt all of the gold and stuff down. Like they take it to someone to melt it. So that's what I did with that jewelry. And then then there was another person that we talked to, another reseller, and I had a bracelet that looked like Cartier, but it didn't say Cartier, but it was really, really, really well made. And I just had this hunch, like it was something good, and it was. It ended up being a gold bracelet. So we gave that to him, and again, he weighed it, and I sold it to him, and I made good money. So like I am happy with doing that, because I don't feel like I'm getting ripped off at all. Like I'm getting a very fair price for the item, and I barely paid anything for the stuff, so it's a win-win situation. It's a win for them and it's a win for me. And they are absolutely like happy and thrilled to, you know, not have to actually source for it, because someone's just coming to them, and you know, you have that person who can just give you something, you know what I mean? And it's just like super easy for them, and it's super easy for me. So I just kind of wanted to discuss that. So I have been, anything that I'm like questioning, because they'll look at anything, like if I'm not too sure about it. Like I had a Tiffany bracelet, and I remember my mom had gotten it at a yard sale, and she told me that the person said that it wasn't authentic. And you know, for years I didn't really know if it was or not, like if maybe they thought that it wasn't but it actually was, and what have you. And I gave that to them, and they said that it wasn't authentic. It wasn't, you know, real silver or anything like that. So I mean, obviously they didn't buy it, and I still have that. But I just kind of wanted to make mention of that, because it's just been a nice way for me to sell jewelry very quickly and for a good profit. So I'm really happy about that. And like now when I'm out at yard sales, I'm like, I try to find stuff, but there are so many jewelry resellers out there that like, basically if there's real gold or anything at a yard sale, it's probably gone within like the first like couple minutes that the yard sale starts. So it's kind of hard to find out in the wild. But that was just something I wanted to make mention of. And then the only other thing that I really wanted to make mention of as well was, you guys know that I really like selling perfume and beauty items and things like that. And I had to, eBay removed like a bunch of my used perfume listings, because you can't list used perfumes anymore, even under as used under the collectible. Like, they have to be, the bottles have to be completely empty, so they can't be used at all. So, but you can still sell used perfume on other platforms, so it doesn't make any freaking sense why you can't list it on eBay when you can list it on other platforms with no problems whatsoever. So I have been posting all of my perfumes that are not new, like perfumes, body sprays, that type of thing. I've been posting over on Mercari, and I've been selling pretty decently over there. So that's another option. It's not like my favorite platform. I will always choose eBay over any other platform, but it is an option to list used perfumes and stuff like that over there on Mercari. So if I see, like, just for instance, the other last week, I was at a yard sale and I found a Victoria's Secret body spray that's worth about $50 some, but it was used. It wasn't, you know, filled to the tippy top, but almost. So I'm not going to list it on eBay, obviously, but I can list it on Mercari and still make money. So I still encourage you to buy used perfume out there, because I mean, it's still worth money. You just can't list it on eBay, but you can list it elsewhere and still make good money. So that's what I've been doing with any kind of, like, mainly my used perfume and stuff is what I have listed over there. I haven't really listed much of anything else from any other category. I don't really cross post my listings. I used to do that. I used to list on Poshmark, and I'd throw Mercari, Poshmark, and obviously eBay, but I don't deal with Poshmark anymore. It's just not my thing. eBay has always been my thing, and like I said, it is the platform that I will always just like more than any other platform. Like, I have been selling some on Whatnot here lately, but again, it's just, you know, not my favorite platform. It's always been eBay and always will be. It's where, you know, I make the most money, and obviously I'm gonna sell wherever I make the most money. So that's pretty much everything that I kind of wanted to talk about. I feel like in my last CHING I didn't really have much to talk about at the end of the video. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. You'll have to let me know what you thought down in the comments, how sales are going for you. Do you post on other platforms other than eBay? Which one is your favorite? Is eBay your favorite, or maybe Poshmark is your favorite? I know, you know, there's clothing resellers out there who absolutely, like, love Poshmark, but I don't consider myself really a clothing reseller. I'll buy clothes to resell, but it's not really like the thing I gravitate towards the most. A lot of the times when I go to yard sales, it's like the last thing I want to look at is clothes. So I don't do a whole lot of clothing reselling, and you can kind of see that by my cha-chings. You really don't see it pop up too often. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next time.